Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Devastating floods unleashed by monsoon storms. Millions of people in Bangladesh and India saw their homes submerged underwater. The floods have killed dozens in both countries.
Extreme weather events in 2022 caused by climate change, part 2 of 4. Continue watching to find out more.
Welcome to our show, Extreme Weather Events in 2022, Caused by Climate Change, Part 2 of 4. In the first part of this series, we reported on the record heat waves across the globe and the devastating floods in Pakistan. On today's program, we'll continue highlighting the floods that occurred in other parts of the world in 2022. Pakistan's neighbor countries, India and Bangladesh, have also been hit hard by unprecedented levels of flooding due to heavy rainfall this monsoon season.
Northeast India and neighbouring Bangladesh have been hit by heavier than usual monsoon rains, causing widespread flooding. At least 9 people have been killed and 2 million left homeless in the Indian state of Assam. Experts say floods following seasonal rains are increasing due to climate change.
Devastating floods unleashed by monsoon storms. Millions of people in Bangladesh and India saw their homes submerged underwater. The floods have killed dozens in both countries.
Lightning strikes have killed at least 15, and landslides have killed more than 4 people in Bangladesh. Officials said that torrential rains caused the worst monsoon floods in the country's recent history. Much of the country's northeast was underwater, and the Sunamganj district was almost disconnected from the rest of the country. In South Asia, monsoon rains typically begin in June, but this year heavy rains began to pour down in March, 3 months sooner than usual in northeastern India and Bangladesh, triggering floods as early as April in Bangladesh. Floods and landslides also damaged many other countries across Asia. Nepal reported that more than 20 people lost their lives after heavy rain triggered landslides. Iran's Crisis Management Organization reported that at least 69 people had been killed in flooding and landslides. Another crisis was added to Afghanistan when heavy rains poured down on several provinces across the eastern, central, southern, and western regions, resulting in flash floods and landslides that caused over 180 deaths, displaced at least 8,000 residents, and damaged at least 3,000 houses. In Indonesia, a record amount of torrential rainfall, about 600 millimeters in 3 days in August 2022, caused flooding and landslides and killed 3 people. Record drought followed by heavy rainfall caused deadly flash floods and landslides in northwest Qinghai Province, China, and took 16 lives. In the summer of 2022, floods and landslides from extreme rainfall and tropical storms also caused several deaths, damaged infrastructure, and destroyed crops in many areas of South Korea, Japan, Sri Lanka, Olak or Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, and the Philippines. On the other side of the world, residents of Dallas, Texas, USA were surprised by a once-in-a-thousand-year flood. As much as 385 millimeters of rain fell in 24 hours, triggering flash floods and sinking the city underwater. One person was reported dead. Meanwhile, heavy rain took its toll, causing flash floods in parts of New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. Just a month earlier, heavy rains combined with a drought that prevented the soil from soaking up water led to the historic Kentucky floods, which killed 40 people in eastern Kentucky. Further south in early summer 2022, floods and mudslides caused a devastating scene in Brazil.
More than a month's worth of rain fell in just 12 hours in certain parts of Recife, a city in the northeast of Brazil. And that triggered a series of landslides that swept away houses, vehicles, trees, anything that lay in their path.
Brazil has suffered from floods over the past few years. Hundreds of Brazilians have died in flooding and landslides brought on by torrential downpours. In February of this year, 80 people were killed and 4,000 lost their homes in the state of Pernambuco. In western Costa Rica, the Red Cross confirmed at least 3 people died and many were injured in a landslide caused by heavy rains in Cambronero. Experts said La Niña, caused by climate change, is the reason for these rainy season downpours. We'll take a moment now to pray for world vegan, world peace, and be back shortly. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television. Welcome back to our show, Extreme Weather Events in 2022 Caused by Climate Change, Part 2 of 4. The world is seeing more record-breaking deluges and flash floods, and climate change is to blame for these tragic events. Global warming means more evaporation and more moisture in the atmosphere, making storm clouds heavier before they eventually break. So in areas where it rains, the rain will be more intense. Extreme rainfall of nearly 14 inches or 350 millimeters in 2 days in the southeastern part of South Africa triggered one of the country's deadliest disasters of this century. People ran for their lives while the violent water swept through in the middle of the night when people were sleeping, flattening their homes. Severe flooding and landslides took out roads and bridges, killed at least 448 people, displaced more than 40,000, and destroyed over 12,000 homes. Estimated property damage was around $1.57 billion. A recent study showed that human-induced climate change doubled the chance of deadly South African floods. The scientists analyzed weather data and computer simulations to examine today's climate and concluded that extreme rainfall is expected to happen about once every 20 years, while without human-caused global warming, such an event would only happen once every 40 years. After a prolonged drought in East Africa, extreme rainfall caused deaths and flooding and destroyed crops, homes, and infrastructure across Uganda. The flood caused at least 24 deaths in the Mbali district in eastern Uganda. Heavy rains then triggered landslides in western Uganda, killing at least 16 people. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs estimated that more than 300,000 Ugandans have been affected by floods and landslides, and 65,000 have been displaced. Not far from Uganda, in Sudan and South Sudan, people are also trying to recover from deadly floods that left them with nothing.
Thousands of people in the farming town of El Managil and surrounding villages have lost homes and property in what they say is the worst flooding in a decade. The Sudanese Red Crescent says irrigation ditches in the farming area have overflowed and that more than 100 villages have been cut off and 10,000 homes have been damaged or collapsed. Some 3,000 people have looked for shelter in makeshift camps. Nationwide, more than 150,000 people have been affected by flooding so far this year. It doubles the number at the same stage of last year's rainy season, according to the United Nations. Residents said they have had limited access to drinking water or food, and most assistance cut off by deep water in some places.
Since the beginning of the rainy season in June 2022, at least 129 people have died in Sudan. During the same period, South Sudan experienced a fourth consecutive year of severe flooding. Floods caused the destruction of crops, pushing the disaster victims into hunger and starvation when food prices spiked and assistance was reduced.
South Sudan has been on the front line of climate change, battered by floods and drought, leaving millions of people starving in this African nation. Then came Russia's war in Ukraine, and a crisis became a catastrophe, forcing the World Food Programme to make drastic cuts. Famine stalks these villages. At a makeshift clinic, mothers bring their emaciated babies to see nutritionist Mona Sheikh.
So we see she's already in the red, severely malnourished. Yeah, I'm afraid, any child like that, we are very close to losing them. Really? Within days.
Another part of Africa is desperate for rain. The Horn of Africa, a large peninsula and geopolitical region in East Africa, has endured severe drought. The region had 4 consecutive failed rainy seasons and is likely to face a 5th straight failed rainy season as dry conditions continue throughout the year. The worst drought in decades, driven by climate change, displaced 1 million people in Somalia. The region is facing a food crisis with 22 million people at risk of starvation, according to the WFP. The UN is calling for urgent aid. In a conference held in Indonesia, Supreme Master Ching Hai called for immediate action to save lives.
Already we have lost countless precious human lives and animal, people, and life-supporting plants due to climate change. Every year, at least 150,000 people die due to climate change, including in Indonesia. Also, every year, 325 million people are seriously affected by climate change, also including Indonesia, of course. That is more than the whole population of your country. who are suffering each year due to climate change. Imagine if the whole population of your country suffered due to climate change. And in the whole world, 325 million people, that's more than your whole country's population, suffering due to climate change. Scientists calculated the annual number of flood events has tripled since 1980s. And tropical storms and similar events have nearly doubled, madam. Furthermore, the United Nations Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, John Holmes, stated that 99% of the people who lose their lives due to natural disasters are in Asia, including Indonesia. And how many more are we bound to lose if we don't change in time? What are we waiting for? Fortunately, we still have hope, madam. If we still really want to stop all this loss and suffering, we must all become vegans to save the world. Very simple solution.
Our deepest gratitude goes to you, Supreme Master Ching Hai, for sharing your wisdom. May all world leaders quickly heed your advice and pass vegan laws to save our world.
All information concerning the scientific evidence of climate change and its solution is in Supreme Master Ching Hai's book, From Crisis to Peace, free for download at crisistopeace.org.